Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
Can't talk. Food coma.
That's right. You went to the not quite the state fair.
No, they call it Kicking Off Summer Mini State Fair, where they used about a fourth of the fairgrounds and some of the vendors opened up. They had music, games, some lots of food, lots of stuff to buy, walking around. The weather actually held off pretty good. It's cloudy, but the temps were fine and no rain. And I was like, okay, well, let's just start from the top. We started off with fat bacon on a stick. And the only reason we started with that because fat bacon on a stick. Oh, awesome.
What is fat bacon compared to regular bacon?
Well, you're a vegetarian, so I'm not even going to tell you. But if you want to know, you can go to the regular state fair and get it. But they fry it up, and it's on a stick, and it's, delish. And the only reason we ate that was because we were waiting in line for the Pronto Pups. Now, the line wasn't too bad. The first day of this event, because it went from like Thursday, and we're recording this on Memorial Day, so it's still going on. But they limited it to like 5,000 people, so it wasn't overtly crowded. But on the first day, apparently the Pronto Pup people underestimated just how many people have a Pronto Pup deficiency in their blood system, because it's been a year or so since the state fair, and not counting the drive-through fair we talked about in podcasts past. And the line was like up to an hour, although we were only in line about 10 minutes because they had both of them going, and that was the first thing we hit. And of course, nothing downs the Pronto Pups better than a frosty glass of mini donut beer. Yes, it tastes like mini donut beer. After that, we went over and we ate a little healthy. We got some warmed up strawberry rhubarb crisp in a bowl. And so that was my fruit for the day.
Oh, good.
After that, I got pickled with my daughter. I got myself a giant pickle on a stick, and she got the fried pickles. And that's kind of what did me in, because after that, I was like, oh. However, I kept going. I went in and I got those sweet Martha cookies. Got me 2 buckets of them. Oh, boy, they were good. They're good warm. And I even had to share them. Damn it, I don't like sharing them. But do you think that stopped us, Cory? Because usually the cookies are the last thing you get. But that didn't stop us. Hell no. After that, we got in line for some fresh French fries. And we got a bucket full of French fries because there were like 6 of us, and I figured we could all eat it.
And everything's being sold in buckets.
It should
or
be.
Sticks.
The thing that depressed me, though, is I don't normally get a bucket of fries, because this was just because 6 people were eating off it. And by that time, we were getting close to food comas. But, and, we had by that time, I switched to light beer. But my wife purposely, she knows I like to keep the buckets because I bring them home and I use them for stuff. In this case, I was going to use the light, well, first of all, there's still Martha cookies in the Martha cookie bucket, so I can't throw that away. But I was just going to use the French fry bucket because as I go through boxes and stuff, I keep running across little toy parts. And as toy collectors are want to know, that's what separates a $5 toy from a $30 toy. I've tried to explain this to my wife. It's like, okay, see, this is a Green Lantern figure, $5. This is a Green Lantern. Put it together, boom, $30 toy. Why? Because people like you throw away the little tiny toy pits because you don't know what they are. And to this day, it happened on one of my deployments. She cleaned out the kids' room, and I asked her, I said, don't throw away any toy parts. But she threw away like garbage bags full of toy parts. which again angers me because now I have all these Power Ranger toys that are just, I mean, they might have some value to them, but all the little pieces that you put with them, she threw away. And I told her, that's why I didn't want you to do that. I got the boxes. I got the main figure. I have none of the accessories, none of the little pieces that get put on or anything, because she just swept them up and threw them away. And I said, really, you just couldn't leave them for me to get home. And to this day, that baffles her too. You know, even now, I have a little Futurama toy, you know, the ship, and
Yes.
it comes on a stand, and there's supposed to be a little plastic piece that goes from the stand to the ship. Nope. Got thrown away because somebody, oh, look, something I don't know what it is, throw it away, which sucks. So I can't have my Futurama ship flying. Do, 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 do. Anyways, that's too much geeking. By that time, we were food comaed out. We walked around a little bit more. I think Holly got a taco salad, and Jared, her boyfriend, actually, he got his COVID shot, because he was one of these guys who's kind of in a limbo, you know, not high risk, and the job isn't high risk. And so they were giving free COVID shots. So he went and got one. And after that, rewarded himself with one of them gyros.
Hero.
And, yeah, he was a hero for getting the shot. I thought so. Although today he's feeling pretty sore. So, and like I said, I'm just, I mean, before I was waiting for Cory. He was late. He didn't get up. He didn't. I just swept into that Sweet Martha jar, had a few more cookies. But really, what is your excuse? Why are you dragging your ass? Why did I have to wait 21 minutes and 32 seconds to start this here podcast?
Well, you didn't have to wait 21 minutes because you've been talking for, I don't know, a while.
You're just mad because you don't like to go to the state fair and imbibe in all the goofy foods that. Although you would have liked this part because this was
American food.
Rowdy.
Get
Yeah.
away from me.
Talk about, we used to have a whole segment of, oh my God, this crazy foods. We could actually make a podcast of that. Actually,
We haven't had good American food announcements in a while because with the pandemic, fast food places condensed their menu. They got rid of stuff to make it easier to handle drive-thrus. The baseball parks weren't really opens, and the ones that were, they didn't have any new stuff because, again, fewer people, they're not going to experiment a lot. And so we haven't had much in the way of American food, but I was up late last night. I've actually been busy.
Whoa. We may be explicit, but we don't want to hear all of what you were doing.
Yeah, you do.
Keep it clean. Oh, what the hell?
Everything.
Let it go.
Everything I do is clean.
We call it
Over
boring.
the weekend, I had to finish off my shifts at the group home before I could start my vacation.
What?
Yes, I am on vacation for this week, but I got strong-armed into doing semi-awake shifts at the group home because they were supposed to be sleep shifts, but were I was the only one there, and some clients had trouble sleeping. So, and then there was one where the person was supposed to show up at 6 a.m. so that I could leave. And he called, said he was running a bit late. He got there at 7:50. So, yeah, I guess an hour and 50 minutes is a bit late. But yesterday, I was covering the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view. Wrestling pay-per-view. This is the first pay-per-view since the pandemic started where they had the full audience there. AEW normally goes long anyway. This pay-per-view was 4.5 hours long. And if I wasn't sitting on the floor covering it for PWInsiderElite.com, it would have felt like about an hour and a half. It was so much fun. And the audience was so hyped. Everybody who came out got huge pops. Everything they did, huge excitement. Lots and lots of fun. And it was the most fun I've had watching a wrestling event in ages. And, you know, the event itself was, I would say it was about a B. but with the audience, that full crowd rocking and enjoying everything, it felt like an old ECW show where the crowd was part of the show, not because they were being obnoxious, but because they were giving off so much energy that the performers took it up to the next level. It was so much fun. The pay-per-view got over around midnight, and then we had to do the audio afterward, and that was an hour and a half. So by the time I got to bed and got to sleep, it was around 2:30 in the morning. Now, today is a Monday when we're recording.
It is Memorial Day.
You know who the dumb person is who didn't turn off his Alexa alarm clock?
Quack, quack, quack.
This guy,
Yeah.
7:30. Get your ass out of bed. That's right. I have Samuel L. Jackson as my alarm clock. So I turned it off and I laid there for about 15 minutes. And Joe, when you're on vacation, when you have a day off, something like that, and you wake up kind of early, there's this thing that happens once you're a man of a certain age. That is, do I think I could go back to sleep?
Ah!
Or should I get up and pee so that I don't wake up in a waterbed?
Hmm.
And eventually
Oh,
the feeling
choice.
of I need to get up and have my morning pee won out. Came out, just sort of wandered to the living room, turned on the TV, watched a documentary, and by the end of the documentary, I do what I call bobbing for apples, where your head's just, dropping down. And it's, it's a day off. I'm going to go back to sleep. Set the alarm for an hour. This time I slept through the alarm. Woke up at about 5 till midnight to a message from Joe saying, "Hey, let's go. Come on. Wake up, you slacker."
Not midnight, noon.
Yeah. Well,
It felt like midnight to you, but I know your 12-hour cycle's off.
everything's off. But here we are. We're recording. I have the next 7 days off. I have a big old stack of comics, and I'm hopefully going to read them.
Are you heading up north?
I don't know. I haven't decided. I have to. Tuesday, I have to get my eyes tested. Friday, I have to get my car serviced because it's been. You know how when you have a new car, they say, "Oh, well, you get it done every what is it? Every 7,500 miles, you take it in to get it serviced." Well, it's been over a year, and I have finally driven 7,500 miles.
See, the reason I asked about going up north, because that's where we went. Because if you recall the fill-in episode, while I believe it is, I don't want to get all mixed up in the timely-wimey thought, because it should be hitting as we're recording this. But I actually didn't hit any comic stores when we went up north, which really surprised my wife because she was all resigned to the fact that she'd be sitting in the car while I perused a few comic stores. And there's a reason for that, but we'll talk about that as we get going. But the North Shore vacation, again, short, sweet. I was going to mention, I don't know if you have a Minnesota state permit to go into the parks at will. But if you did go up north, the two I'd recommend that you could hit would be Gooseberry Falls. Although now, well, I guess kids are still in school. I mean, first of all, you can go in free and you can walk the trails, and it's a short hike to all the things. You walk down to the lake and back. If you feel more adventurous, go up to the higher falls, but you can do it for free. You don't have to worry about having a permit unless you drive into the rest of the park and things like that. That's one of the premier falls, usually crowded during the summertime. It's usually one that when Chris and I go up north, we miss. But we went all the way north, all the way up to Grand Portage. And that is the furthest you can go before going into Canada. We didn't go into Canada because the borders are still closed. And if you excuse me a second, I gotta
They don't
find
want
my
us.
picture. No, I got up and took a pee. I didn't have to worry about whipping it out.
No, I mean, Canada does not want us.
No, they don't. Here we go. Grand Portage State Park is an interesting state park because it's on Grand Portage Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and the state of Minnesota have a unique partnership at Grand Portage State Park. It's the Chippewa's land, but they basically run the state park that's on tribal land, and because of that, you don't have to have a permit to visit that, and you can take a very, very short walk to go see the highest waterfall in Minnesota. It's a long drive, but 61 is kind of neat because if you did decide to go up 61, you'd stop at the East Beaver Bay. I don't remember the name of it, but you'd see it's on the right-hand side. It's like a thrift store. But she always has boxes of comics, and they're usually newer comics. I suspect somebody's just selling off their collection. I didn't stop this time, but that would be a place to look. As you keep going into Grand Marais, there's the used place that has a lot of comic books. I could give you that. But you just keep driving up all the way to the North Shore, get to that park. Grand Portage itself has a casino. It's a national monument because it's one of the original forts that was part of the fur trade. That was part of that area up there. Just beautiful drive. Tons of different places you can stop and check out the views. I know you and I went up there once. I think we went to Two Harbors, but if you do decide to take the drive, you can do it in a day. Stay overnight if you want somewhere, or just drive back. But I always find it relaxing just to get up on the North Shore and walk in the woods for a while, do some of the trails, and always take a look to see if the trail, how long it goes, because in Grand Portage they have the Middle Falls, which is kind of curious because it's a long, like 5-mile hike that gets very strenuous. However, once the border is open, you can drive and go into the counterpart park on the other side of the Pigeon River. That's the river that separates Minnesota and Canada. And it's a short walk to see the Middle Falls. So, good old United States guys, we sweat our balls off and get all the way there and, okay, we made it, and collapse. Or just drive like the Canadians do and take a short walk to it. So we didn't do the long walk. The fun thing about it is you're walking down the path and you're looking across the river. You're looking at Canada. It's a really short distance, although Canada has all the cliffs because of the river erosion. And the falls was amazing. So, yeah, we had a good trip up. And I know we're planning another short 3B. We keep thinking, do we want to come up and do a longer one? But what was neat about this one is we packed so light, just clothes, personal effects. We didn't bring any food. We usually bring food snacks. But in the last couple of times, we brought food to feed an army, and then we went out to eat anyways. And now everything's opening up, so you can go out and eat. I think most of the rules are following CDC. If you're vaccinated, don't need a mask. If you are not, you should probably wear one. And then the staff are all wearing masks and things like that. Some places have the sign up, please wear a mask, probably because the owner is high risk. It's kind of interesting. I don't know if I had a comic store today, if I would ask people, I would probably ask people to wear a mask just because I am high risk. I don't know how that would affect people coming in. Would they stop coming in? Jeez, I don't want to go to Crazy Comics. I got to wear a mask. Yeah, that or get the Yoa disease so he can die and have a decent sale for once.
I say that anybody who would show up and start fighting about masks, that's what Butch is for.
Yeah,
because Butch is very, 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 very pro-mask.
Yeah, well,
and his wife was making masks there for a while, wasn't she?
I think she was. I know a number of people that were out of their jobs and just went to make masks, especially because in the very beginning we forget that it was so short. All this stuff was nobody nobody kept masks around unless you had a chronic condition. And they were just hard to find. Now, of course, I see them discounted at various stores as I walk in because they got to get room for their summer stuff.
Yeah, the summer masks.
I was going to mention, I said why I didn't spend a lot of money on the North Shore. This will be done. I'll probably talk about this in the next podcast because next Sunday, as we sit it, is another one of the Minnesota Toy Posse's outdoor sales. And unfortunately, we won't get a chance. By the time this drops, it's either going on or it'll be over with. But more importantly, and this one I don't want to advertise because I know this will probably be our geeking day if we're going to have some fun. But Captain Jack's Comics is having another one of their summer kickoff warehouse sales. And Cory and I talked about that. You went, the last one, he does it Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I work Friday, Saturday, so I couldn't go. But last time you went, did you go on Saturday or did you go Friday?
I went Saturday.
Okay,
so
right
after
Saturday.
I got done with the shift at the group home.
And I went on Sunday. And again, if you're going to go, it's 6900 Oxford Street, St. Louis Park, Minnesota. It starts at 10 a.m. I think it goes to 4 or 5. I don't know. But if you look on the Facebook page, Captain Jack's Comics, I'm not ready for this one because I haven't even gone through. I got stuff from last year I haven't even gone through. And I've barely gotten through the stuff I picked up at that one. But I know I'll pick up a long box worth of stuff because it's always fun. At $1 a piece, why not? I mean, it's good stuff, good reading. It'll be fun because I think we're going to get the whole gang together and have a genuine geeking day, which we have not done in quite some time. So I'm looking forward to that. And who knows, you might run into us. If you do, at least say hi. Maybe we'll get you interviewed for this here their podcast there. Get your
if
voice
you run
on
into us, kind of pay attention where you're going.
And also stay away from my comics. These are mine. I'm looking at them first.
Yeah.
Go over to the Archies.
Yeah, go look
when you go there, Cory, what did you start looking through?
I just started with the dollar boxes.
Well, they're all dollar boxes, but I mean, did you start with DC, Marvels?
They have the other stuff. I started with the older stuff, the stuff that wasn't bagged and boarded. I am basically looking for like giant comics and 70s stuff that I haven't read. So
I'm kind of the same way. I start with the independent because I want to find something I've never read.
Stuff. Yeah.
I'll look through the graphic novels. I do actually. I like to start at the high buck stuff because usually they have the high buck stuff at half price. Because I'm always looking at that stuff like I've always wanted that comic, and at half price, why not? So it'll be fun. I can't wait. I mean, that'll be fun. Depending on who we get, let's get there early. Let's get there 10 a.m. Because we're just not gonna hit the warehouse sale.
Oh, we everywhere.
We haven't been to the new Hot Comics up in it's not Richfield anymore. I'm not even sure where they are. I'd have to look it up. There's another place. Let's see. I probably can't find it. As I flip through the Facebook feeds and I see something, I tend to take a screenshot of it. There's a place called Wizard Wax in Minneapolis. That's a collectible type store.
We went there first week.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right around from Comic College and
Time Bomb.
Time Bomb. Thank you. I'm looking right at the little button they have of the old game. So, and I imagine we could get to Dreamhaven again. I haven't seen Greg in a while, although I don't know if he works Sunday.
And just maybe, he'll have the garage open.
Yeah, that is true. It's summertime, and maybe we'll take a drop to Cedar Cliff. He's always we'll just have some fun. We'll see where we go. Invites are out to Lady Lisa and the rarely seen and often talked about Butch. Besides, Cory and I like doing it. We get a podcast or two out of it. Anything to make it easy.
Now, I have been reading stuff online in groups on Facebook, like old guys who like old comics, comic creators talking about stuff. And someone posted in one of those groups an interview with Stan Lee from 1971, which was before he was Stan the Man Lee. Pre-toupee. And we found out something. Joe Duffy spilled the beans on Stan's hair. Shall I tell you the secret of Stan's hair?
Sure.
When Stan started going to colleges, he bought a toupee. Because if you see pictures of Stan in the 50s and early 60s, he looks like a middle-aged guy who's gone bald, hair cut really, really short. And then in the 70s, when he's in his 50s, big, long, luscious 70s hair. Well, what it was, when he started going to the colleges, he was embarrassed about being bald, so he bought a toupee. And it wasn't long before Stan heard people kind of making fun of how bad the toupee looked. So he actually went and got hair plugs.
Ouch.
And this is in the 70s when the technology for that wasn't all that great, which is why his hair looked the way it did from the late 70s on. But this is an interview from 1971 where he talked about, first off, he talked about how he came into the business as kind of a gopher for Simon and Kirby. His job was to fill up the inkwells and go get sandwiches and go get coffee and go get new paper. His job was to do that. And then when Simon and Kirby left, he did not get into why they left. I think I've talked about that numerous times in the past. But when they left, he was the person in the office with the most experience. So Martin Goodman said, "I'm making you the editor." And the pay was so low that he asked, well, can I write some stuff too to kind of supplement my income? And Martin Goodman said, sure, as long as, you're actually writing it, don't submit. Because if you submit vouchers and you didn't write it, I'll find out and you'll be fired.
Sure thing, Uncle.
So he did that till he went into the military. Then when he came back, Timely was selling so much stuff that he edited kind of the adventure comics, and a guy named Vince Fago edited the humor and funny animal books, which Stan wanted to write the humor and funny animal books because he thought he was really funny. Talks about how when EC was big, he really resented them, and he really thought that William Gaines was a terrible businessman who killed comics. He really felt, and this is in 71, that while EC had some really good artists, the stories they were doing were beyond the pale, shouldn't have been done, too gory, and he believes that it's William Gaines who brought down the congressional hearings on comics. And his favorite creator who never worked for Marvel was Charles Biro. Charles Biro was an writer-artist who also edited at Lev Gleason Publications. And I find it ironic that he feels that William Gaines and EC brought down Congress, because Charles Biro did the comic Crime Does Not Pay, which was the first crime comic. I've read some of them, and if you read the stuff from the 40s into the 50s about how comic books are terrible for our children, they were more concerned about the crime comics than the horror comics. And the number one selling crime comic was Crime Does Not Pay. But also, he said that the stuff that he did with Daredevil and the Little Wise Guys was fantastic. Really liked Crime Does Not Pay. And the reason that he hired George Tuska as soon as he could was that Tuska had worked with Charles Biro, and he felt that anybody who worked in Charles Biro's shop would be a fantastic artist, knew what needed to be done, knew how to put together a good book. And it was kind of one of those where, well, if he worked on Daredevil and he worked on Crime Does Not Pay, he's the artist I want. So I thought that was just a fascinating interview before Stan became, face front, true believer in everything he did. It's pretty rare that you get the sedate Stan, where he basically talked about the business of comics. I also hold in my hand, Joe.
Hey, whoa. We may be explicit. Not that explicit.
The complete Kirby War and Romance.
Oh, fun.
And I was asked by David Beard, listener of the show, that the book was so small, there's absolutely no way it could be all of Kirby's War and Romance stuff, because Kirby created romance comics and did tons of war comics. And the thing is, yes, he did. He did a ton of romance and a ton of war comics for other publishers. When he came to Marvel in 1957, they put him on the monster books and the westerns, because the monster books and the westerns were the best-selling books. The romance books were mostly put together by second-tier artists, Al Hartley, Vince Colletta's studio, things like that. So there are very few Kirby romance stories. They do reprint all of the romance stories, as well as all of the covers he did for the romance books. And most of these, of course, are inked by Vince Colletta, because Vince Colletta did the romance stuff. And during the 50s, Vince Colletta was kind of well known in the industry as doing the best girl comics. He drew beautiful women. He drew... basically, his studio was best known for doing romance books. Now, the war comics, there aren't very many here, because in 57, Marvel wasn't printing war comics. Kirby did freelance and do, let's see, he did some stuff for Battle and Battleground, but not that much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're all really early stuff. 55, and then one story for Battle in 1960. Nope, 3 stories for Battle. They were all in 1960, so before the Fantastic Four. But they do have all of Kirby's Sergeant Fury stories in here. He did, let's see, he did the interiors up through... which issue? I think he only did the interiors up to issue 7. Yep, he only did the interiors up through issue 7, did the covers until issue 25, and then the last thing he did was a cover for Modeling with Millie, number 45. They have a nice introduction by Tom Scioli, who did the Jack Kirby biography comic a while back. Some original art pages in the back from the romance books. But really, it's 550 pages. That's it. That's all Kirby did for those. If you want Kirby's romance stuff, there are 2 books that Fantagraphics did reprinting Young Romance, which was the first romance comic ever. They did 2 volumes of that. And then there was a book back in the 80s from Eclipse called Real Love that reprinted just some random Kirby romance comics. And then a book that I have not stopped praising since it came out, Dingbat Love, reprints stuff that was never originally printed. The True Life Divorce Stories and Soul Romances, which were 2 black and white magazines Kirby was going to do for DC. And DC never really, they printed In the Time of the Mob and Spirit World. They printed them through, they didn't even call them DC magazines. They were Hamilton distribution publication. And then they pulled the plug on those. DC did not jump into the black and white magazines the way Marvel did. And to this day, I will never understand why, because Marvel's black and white magazines were really successful during the short time that they were out there. The Warren stuff was really successful in the 70s because there was kind of a horror boom. But I have been reading this. The romance stuff is not as good as his stuff that he did for Young Romance, because by this time, this is 1957, 58, 59. Romance comics were now for little girls, the tweens, basically. So it wasn't the Young Romance that Kirby published himself, was more like for the readers of romance pulp magazines. It was aimed at an older audience. The stories were a little more sophisticated. The ones that Marvel did in the 50s and 60s were aimed at young girls. So it's more, I saw my boyfriend with another woman, and instead it's some convoluted explanation as to why he was hanging out with her, and he really loved his girlfriend, but he had to go to the grocery store with some other woman.
Could have been Archie books.
Pretty much Archie books without the jokes.
Ah.
Now, kind of like how Modeling with Millie was a soap opera without jokes until the 60s, when they kind of made it more into kind of an Archie knockoff. But I'm really excited about that book.
And of course, it's
really fun read.
Crazily priced
stuff
on
I haven't seen.
It's already crazily priced on the eBays. You had your
Really?
chance. We warned you. Well, it's upwards of 100. What was the cover on this bad boy?
It was $100.
Okay, so yeah, people are selling it at cover.
I'm sorry, 125.
Which is weird, because usually they sell things at, like, as soon as it shows up, they're at half price almost immediately, and there's none for half price. I mean, you could basically buy it now at 100. So,
and I think the reason for that is that the audience is really limited for it.
Oh yeah, and we talked about that. Again, this is another one of them books. You had your chance. We warned you. You could have bought it at half price, but did you listen to us? Well, the smarter ones did.
Yeah. But also the other comic that showed up in my box today that I was really excited about, Slow Death #0.
Uh-oh.
Slow Death was an underground comic from Rip-Off Press that was a horror comic, but it wasn't, monsters and stuff like that. It was underground comic creators doing stories about death and dying.
Is that one that was oversized?
Yes, this one is a trade paperback.
Hang on a second.
And
see, I had all my stuff laid out according to, I want to read this. I got to read this right away. I got to wait. And I remember, I think I ordered it. You keep talking. I'm going to see if I can find my copy, because my wife moved everything.
Oh, okay.
And now it's like, I don't know where anything is.
First off, it is edited by John B. Cook, who is probably best known for being the editor at Tomorrow's of Comic Book Artist. So he did a book about a year or two ago about Weirdo, which was an underground comics magazine in the 80s that was kind of the premier underground. Basically, the people who were still doing underground comics in the 80s, they got together and they did the comic Weirdo, which ran for a number of issues, was kind of the last hurrah of the undergrounds, headlined, of course, by R. Crumb. But now he has edited Slow Death, and these are stories about environmental horror. I've only been able to flip through it, and just a fantastic array of different art styles. And John Cook, if you read Comic Book Artist, he has a deep love of the comics business, knows artists backward, forward, upside down. If you think I know about comic artists, this guy has what I know times 100. But it's rare that Rip-Off Press puts anything out. It's a trade paperback of all new underground comics. So I am actually looking forward to reading that once we are done recording.
And I have a reason for everything.
Yeah. So, Joe, what have you been excited about reading in your box day?
Oh, you probably shouldn't have asked that question because I'm just going to rip through it quick. Actually, you know what? Are we going to do a review episode soon?
You know what? Why don't we do that next week?
Okay, so I'm going to take out everything that I'm going to review, and like the number ones. But I'm just going to talk about some things. Good grief, is that all I got are number ones? This must be my number one pile. A couple books that are out. I'm up to issue 2 on the Alien series, and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I mean, Alien's kind of one of those iffy properties where you're kind of like, we already know what the monster is. I mean, wouldn't it be fun to just temporarily zap your brain cells so you don't remember the Alien movie or the Predator movie or anything that has like a surprise ending, so you can rewatch it the way you first watched it? But they're doing a good job with this one. They're out in space. Apparently, their version of environmentalists, they kind of messed up and they let an alien free, and they're sending up a guy. It's like, well, it's your son that effed up, so you go clean it up or else. I like some of the things where he's like, okay, I want 5 synths. No, you're getting 2 soldiers. And of course, the soldiers are dumbasses who, they think they can handle anything. We know better. So I enjoyed that. Eternals is just amazingly fantastic. I'm going to pronounce this. Kieran Gillian Isad Ribic. I think I got that right.
Isad Ribic.
Isad. Okay, so I got one of them.
And isn't he I think he was the artist on Secret War.
Yeah. And the
most recent one, not the one from the 80s.
What I love is just they're treating the Eternals as the godlike beings they are. And I love the interchange in the beginning between I can't think of it. What was the Cirrus and I'm still
Icarus?
learning. Is that Icarus?
Icarus and Circe?
Banging the hammer against something?
I'd have to go back and read it.
Yeah, this is issue 4 I'm looking at, but I'm just loving it. I love the fact that they're dealing with Thanos because Thanos is one of them. And they're like, well, no, we're not going to involve the heroes on this. This is our problem. We'll deal with it. Just a lot of fun. I'm not a big Eternals fan. I mean, I've loved the Kirby stuff was, I don't know. He was going somewhere, but he never got there. But he left such a rich tapestry behind that people have taken it and just done amazing things with it. And when the movie comes, he better have his name blazoned somewhere in it, or there'll be riots in the streets. I'm telling you. I've been enjoying Wolverine. He's going against the Dracula nation. They've actually made that nation one of the powers of the world. They're basically, I think the vampires have looked at what the mutants have done with Krakatoa, and they said, hey, why don't we have our own nation? Yeah, granted, they view us as cattle, but, they're just trying to set it up. And, of course, they're also running this through Avengers. And I just kind of like that background where it's like, you know what? That's a great way to do with the vampires. They don't have to be. We got plenty of cool stuff from the 70s where they're the monsters in the night preying on everybody. Well, Dracula's back and he's like, okay, no, this is a good example. Let's do what the mutants did. Although, as nation states go, there's always intrigue and something going beyond the scenes. So Wolverine's part of that. Avengers is part of that. Read 3 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. Oh, loving it. The fight going on between Kingpin and Osborn and Baron Mordo's been brought in, and Tombstone, Robbie Robinson. Just this whole King's Ransom storyline is just phenomenal. And I'll probably always collect Amazing Spider-Man because it was my first book, but occasionally I lapse out of it. Brand new day, looking at you. But this just got me back into it. I mean, it's There's action, there's intrigue. I'm not quite sure where everybody's going. And we're not through it yet. There's still more coming. I read issues 63, 64, 65 right in a row. And that was a blast. And I come to it every so often, but if you're a gamer and you're not reading Knights of the Dinner Table, you really need to go pick it up. The strip is primarily why I buy it, although there is tons of stuff where they review games, they drop things that you could put into your D&D game if you've been playing it, or what do they call theirs, Hackmaster. This was actually one of the accumulations where they have this character named Crutch, who is a reformed criminal, who is hung out with the gamers, played the game, and now they allowed him to get behind the screen as the, I think they call him DM, don't they? Or do they call it GM? One of the two, game manager. And he's running the game and has been for the last several issues. And the story works on so many different levels. First of all, there's various bits every so often of the personal life between the characters. There's their interaction at the table, not only dealing with Crutch, but also him putting the smackdown on people. But then the characters in game. So my brain is not only watching the characters, but I'm also involved in the storyline of what their characters are going through as they're battling through. This was a sort of a finale. This is what building up to everything. And I was reading it at work, and I totally lost track of time because I'm sitting at a table, and usually what I do, because, well, in this case I have my coat on, but if I'm in uniform, I don't want to be just sitting there looking, hey, look, there's TSA just doing nothing. And I totally didn't even realize that like a flight was unloading around me. People like were, because I was so engrossed in the comic. And really, that's kind of what I look for in a comic book. When I sit down and I have this book open, and again, this is all in black and white, but it could go for the 4 colors as well. I want to be swept away and so totally engrossed that I don't even know what's going on around me. A good book is that way. Good TV show, movies are that way, but that's more, I'm just watching and my brain's processing what I'm seeing. This is my brain actually forming the pictures in my head and enjoying the living heck out of it. So just an amazing series. I've been having a lot of fun catching up with it. I have no idea where that one book is you had, Cory. I know it's in my pile somewhere, but like I said, I complain constantly. I know where pretty much everything is unless somebody moves my stuff. Then, of course, that gives me something to do today. I can go through my piles. Like my daughter just dropped off. She gave me her copy that I gave her, The Superior Foes of Spider-Man Omnibus.
Oh, yeah, that's such a fun book.
Yeah, so I got that back. And I did read it before I gave it to her, but I should reread it. That was a blast. Or I could pull out the Justice League International Omnibus. I haven't read that.
Is that number 1 or number 2? They put out 2 of them.
I know. I got the second one on order. And
that is the kind of the humorous Justice League from right after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Probably one of my favorite comics ever.
I could pull out and reread an Annihilation. That was a blast. Or this one, I Told You So, Comics as Art, which I believe was the history of
Fantagraphics, yes.
Yep, I bought that one on yours. Of course, right next to it's the infamous Secret Wars 2 Omnibus. Yeah, that.
Well, you know what book that I would want, Joe?
Hmm.
I now have a white whale.
Uh-oh. Oh, cool. What is it?
In April of 1933, the magazine Author and Journalist announced that Newsstand Publications is a new publishing company that will bring out a couple of pulp paper magazines soon, for which it is buying material. Martin Goodman, editor, writes concerning its requirements, "We are interested in receiving Western short stories ranging from 3,000 to 6,000 words in length. It must have fairly strong women or love interest. The rate paid for accepted material is 1 to 2 cents a word and a flat sum for novel-length stories. The title of the new Western magazine announced by Newsstand Publications is Western Supernovel, according to the word received from Martin S. Goodman, editor, as last forms of this issue closed. The title of the Underworld Adventure magazine has not yet been selected. Mr. Goodman revises the information regarding its requirements. Action is the most important feature. We want mystery, but not a detective story. We want thrills and drama. We want the detective story taken out of the drawing room, the bedroom, the kitchen, the weekend parties, and placed out in the open where it can have some action. No deduction stories. The setting can be west, Timbuktu, along the Amazon, or on top of a flagpole. In this magazine, we are using shorts from 2,000 to 8,000 words. No novelettes, but we are using a book-length novel of 40,000 to 60,000 words. Rates from 1/2 cent to 2 cents a word, payable upon acceptance. And there it is, Western Supernovel, Volume 1, Number 1. It was made up for reprint stories purchased after use by other magazines, and as I've talked in the past, that was one of the things that got Martin Goodman in a lot of trouble. Reprinting stories without labeling them as reprints was considered fraud in New York. So he already started out reprinting stories from other ones, but it's Western Supernovel Magazine, Volume 1, Number 1, the first Marvel, Timely, Atlas, and now Newsstand Publications, the first thing published by Martin Goodman. It was found by Dr. Michael J. Vassallo, who's an expert on the Martin Goodman pulps, as well as the Gold and Atomic Age stuff that Marvel put out. Basically, he is the number one expert for the historical stuff of Timely and Atlas, to the point where if you pick up a Timely or Atlas masterwork, odds are he's going to be the guy who wrote the introduction. It's going to be very long, and he is the guy who is best known not just for that, but also for artist identification. He's the guy who can look at art, study it, and say, okay, it was drawn by this person and inked by this person. And for a lot of stuff in the 40s and 50s, if it wasn't signed, you don't know who did it. So Marvel actually goes to him when they reprint this stuff to say, who drew this? I have just looked on eBay. There are none.
Yeah.
Just looked out on a bunch of other comic shops that are online, including My Comic Shop and Mile High Comics. They don't have it either.
Do you even have a picture of it, what it looks like?
Yes, because Doc V has one.
Oh.
And the reason he posted this is because he finally found a copy.
Well, tell you what, post it up on our here Facebook page, and maybe one of our vast group of a crew of listeners might be able to aid you in that. That would be epic. I'm a little bummed because I was looking at Sin City Comic exclusives, and they had a exclusive David Mack cover for Department of Truth number 10, which went on sale 7 minutes ago and is already sold out.
Ow.
And I've just been waiting, and then I was so engrossed in what you were. I was looking around for your stuff, and well, it was worth a shot.
Well, while you're looking, Joe, while you're out on the internet looking around at stuff, are unprotected.
Of course.
Our sponsor, NordVPN, is not just the fastest VPN on the market, but they are one of the best VPNs to protect you when you are out surfing the internet. It has the security you need, the features you love. If you buy one account, you can put it on up to 6 devices. It has an easy-to-use app. It can be used on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop, your smart TV, all of it. It makes your online data unreadable to others. And the other thing that people would buy a VPN for, let's say that there is a TV series on Netflix that you want to watch, but it's not available in the US. It's only available in Canada, or it's only available in Scotland. You can go in and change where your computer is getting information from, which is how I watched the AEW pay-per-view last night. I didn't watch it from here in the U.S. No. I went over to the Netherlands and watched it because overseas it's cheaper.
Of course it is.
And because you're a listener, you can sign up now. If you sign up for the 2-year plan, you get it for $4.89 a month. Just go to go.nordvpn.net/sh3ku to take advantage of this deal. They are our new sponsor. Speaking of sponsors,
we got more.
We'll be putting this ad up on all of these other podcasts I do. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcasts that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions, and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus will do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio, if you remember, at pwinsiderelite.com, and if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to the Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where we hand him another bucket of French fries and Martha's cookies.
Oh.
No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
All sorts of fun things. I've actually, since I got back, been putting a lot of stuff up. Still trying to get things up from the MCBF show, and I've been reading stuff, deciding whether I'm going to keep it or go. So always check it out. I'm still racing against the deadline because eBay has these new search functions. So I talked about it. I believe I talked about it a couple podcasts ago. Instead of, you going into different categories, it's just comic books and graphic novels or memorabilia, whatever the hell they call it. But since you all use search parameters, I go in and then they have about a dozen different things. I'll put it, the authors, the writer, the cover artist, the character, the title, the issue number, what era it's from, is it part of a universe, is it a set, is it a graphic novel? There's a few things I disagree with. I don't agree on how they have the grading down, because is it brand new? I don't care if it is a 9.9 comic. If it's not from the last year, it's not brand new. It's because we grade things, mint, near mint, all the way down to poor or whatever. So I don't agree with that. They always have it single unit. I'm glad they're not using that term floppies, but I suppose single unit, lot, whatever. So there's certain things that I don't mind putting new stuff on, but I have over 1,000 books. They want me to rejigger and put in that way. There's a couple things that have changed. Like they don't have an adult. Apparently, they're dumping their adults category. So if you're one to like, that's where you get your adult stuff. Apparently, it's going away. I don't know. And because they put up new rules, like you can sell your adult stuff, you just can't be explicit about it. So whatever that means. And I'll show you an example when we get to what I really like to talk about on the eBays is just some of the books that I've sold. Because we listen to Cory. I mean, when Cory gets rolling, you guys learn something new, and I kind of like to do the same thing. Mainly because I've found if I say, "Hey, I just put this book up," and by the time it'll get around to next week, it's probably gone, and I'd feel bad if it was like, "Yeah, I just got one of those Western Super Volume 1, Number 1 First Goodman books up, but it's sold right away, so I didn't get a chance to tell Cory about it." So, but what did sell, Cory, you remember the Vertigo What Next?
Yes.
Yeah.
That I think they did that with Watchmen. When the Watchmen movie came out, they kind of put out a little special thing saying, "Hey, if you went and saw Watchmen and read that, you're probably wondering what to read next. Read these."
They had a whole series of things like that. And Cory and I are big fans of these dollar books. Image is still cranking them out. We haven't seen them from DC or Marvel in a while. But
yeah, I have not heard back from my contact at Marvel about if they're doing the True Believers anymore, which is a lot like what happened with the Essentials.
Yeah.
When the Essentials started to fade away, I contacted my friend at Marvel, and normally if stuff is going to keep going, he'll go, "Oh, no, this was just a skip month," or no, they're doing this. But if I get radio silence, I kind of infer that it's over. Yeah. It's over, Johnny. It's over.
You can kind of tell your buddy that maybe that's just the way he's doing it. It's like, if you don't, answer me, I kind of infer that it's dead. But yeah, this was a whole series of stuff. The one I sold was a Hellblazer number 1 special edition, because it's always Vertigo What Next, great graphic novels you should be reading. So if you had someone that wanted to try it without committing $15-20 to a book, and of course, now that they're out of print, some of them are kind of pricey themselves. So what was $1 now, sold for $7. So, and I still got one on eBay. So if you're interested in one, check it out. Let's see what other fun things I sold. We've talked about in the past, Grim Tales of Terror. Zenscope has got a huge market in redoing old tales of stuff. Some of them are quite good. All of them seem to contain very voluptuous women on the cover, which is kind of their forte. And it's always hard to figure which cover will become the pricey one. Sometimes it's like if you have a retailer exclusive or a Comic-Con cover. But I happen to have number 13, which dated from 2015, which sold for around $8 or so. So as long as they're in mint shape. So if you like your horror with a little TNA, this is your place to go. There was another series over from Image called Dynamo 5, which was a team that teamed up with all sorts of different Image characters. And I had a few variant covers from the Sins of the Father, which somebody, again, gave me an offer. Would you take this? And I replied, "Oh, hell yeah." Speaking of books that put up and sold super quick, this one sold within 5 minutes. I had a signed Lady Death Chastity one shot from Chaos back in 2002. This had 4 different covers. They were, again, just good girl TNA crossover books. Mine was the Dynamic Forces Red Foil Edition, signed by Brian Pulido. And there are none on eBay, so I just priced it what I thought was fair, and it sold fast. So I'll get that baby out tomorrow. I don't have to ship today because nothing goes on Memorial Day. There was an ACG one-shot called Private Eye. All you really need to know is I believe it was just Charlie Chan reprints. They don't really talk a lot about it. They're kind of pricey if you can find them because nobody bought them. Nobody cared about them when they came out in 2000. And now they're just kind of hard to find collector items. Tales of the Unexpected. I don't know if we've ever talked about this series. This is a DC series. Started in 1956, ended about 67. It was one of several DC's anthology titles, bridging the gap between hard science fiction of mystery in space and strange adventures and the soft edge horror of House of Mystery and House of Secrets. Early issued featured action-oriented sequences and adventure tales, including a few memorable entries by Jack Kirby. With issue 40, Tales of the Unexpected became home to Space Ranger, a science fiction hero whose lighthearted exploits continued through the 60s. Eventually, the contents changed back to story-length mystery and adventures with no continuing features. It was shortened to, or the title was shortened to, The Unexpected after issue 105 and continued with sharper horror mystery focus into the 80s. See, number one was back in 56. If you got $1,500, you might be able to find one. Number 104 was in 1968, which was the last one. And then again, like I said, it continued as The Unexpected and went on. We've talked about that in the past, how they just change the different stories. I have no idea where this came from. This might be from Hot Comics. I had a number 91 in fair to good shape, and I priced it accordingly. It's gone. Simpsons comics are a thing of the past now, but when Bongo was doing it around 2012, they had what they called Simpson One-Shot Wonders. And when my girls gave me all their Simpson comics, I had a Maggie comic. Yes, the baby. She had her own comic book. And don't have it anymore. Somebody out there was lucky enough. Popeye the Sailor comics. Again, another one that was really just a fun history to start because it started way back in 1948. 1 through 65 were published by Dell. Gold Key published it from 66 to 80. King published it from 81 to 92. Carlton published it from 94 to 138. Gold Key published it from 139 to 155. And then Whitman published it until I guess it ended. And let me find the last issue. Was 171. No date on it though. At least I didn't put a date in the look I'm looking up. I had number 166 where Popeye met Sinbad the Sailor. No, not the classic black and white. We always called them back talk cartoons. The one that I think Fleischer did them, didn't he? They were the ones where they recorded the animated sound beforehand. So it was always like, you'd see Popeye, oh, so you're going to do this, huh? And the mouth wouldn't move. We just absolutely loved them. I think they did 3 like that. Because most of the time animation, you record the sound. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. You record the sound, then you put the animation to the sound. Well, in this case, they put the sound after the fact. So there was always talking. And then, of course, just a beautiful series. Go check them out. They're probably on the YouTubes if you can't find them. Let's see. Speaking of adult comics, I had a copy of Velvet Touch number 1 published by Antarctic Press in 1993 under their Venus line. These were basically a collection of sexually explicit stories featuring both new and established talent in the adult comic field. They leaned heavily toward the manga influence, frequently portraying women as the masochistic automations living only to give pleasure. Yeah, not highbrow stuff. I mean, it was definitely adult titles. Ben Dunn, Fred Perry, Ted Nomura. I'm just looking for some names people may know. Paper Tiger. They did 6 issues of it. Issue 6 was the tough one because they only did like 7,500, and I don't know what they were on the other ones. But this is one of those books. Okay, I followed the rules. I put it for $5 in the adult section. It just kind of languished. And when I saw they were getting rid of it, I've had other adult titles. I've done, I sold off my Freak Brothers collection. I still got my Cherry Pop-Tart collection. Didn't know what to do with. And I have a number of other rip-off press books and other underground comics. And some of the covers, yeah, especially in the Bizarre Sex ones, were just amazing. And even a few of them had to be like covered up in plastic in order to be sold. Velvet Touch, I put in there, and then when I brought it back, somebody's going, that's like a $50 comic. And I thought, well, I'll put it up for 30. Boom, sold right away. Been sitting, languishing in the adult books forever. Again, this is just a clue for you people who collect the undergrounds and things like that. You might want to look in the eBay adult section just before it disappears. I'm not sure how well a lot of these are going to be able to be published, especially the more explicit ones. But there is a market for them, and especially some of the other ones, they just low print run, and some of them undergrounds, they're just crazy to sell. And of course, under the, I didn't know you could sell that, I sold 30 Radio Shack Archer electronic parts for $16.01. Yeah, this is one of those things I often complain about. My folks are just dumping stuff on me, and my dad gave me a whole box of stuff. Most of it were Viewmasters and different posters and things. I'm probably going to wade through and put up on the eBays eventually. And then I found this box of electronic parts, and Dad, did you want these? No, I don't. He just bought them like when Radio Shacks went out of business. Now there is a field on eBay. There's a whole section where people are buying these things, and they all run about $5 a pop, some high as 15 with shipping. And I'm like, okay, well, I got 30 of them, but I also have probably 10,000 comics that I'm trying to put on eBays. And what are we going to do on the 18th, Cory? My God, we're going to go get some more. So I just put them on. I figured, let's do a rare auction. I don't do auctions that often. I gave somebody a decent deal and sent them off. So occasionally you will find things. Most of the stuff I have is buy it now. You, as dear listeners of this here show, can just send me a word, especially now, because I really don't have the time or gumption to rejigger all 100,000 plus auctions. So if you've been eyeballing something that you're really interested in, send me an offer. Tell me you're a listener of the show just because it's fun. I actually had, let's see if I can find it here. Oh, of course, now that I want it, I won't be able to find it. I actually had one person, because every time I send out a note, somebody, I hope I get feedback from, but I got a feedback from someone under the Mountain Dude number 27, who said, "Thank you. The book came quick. Definitely be tuning into y'all's podcast." So Mountain Dude, if you're out there, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for buying stuff. And for everybody else out there in the podcast world, you know what? Crazy, Krayz, come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Oh, you going back to bed? I don't blame you. I think I might too. I could have some more cookies.
No, not where I tell Joe, hold on a minute, and then go out and sit on the deck and read an omnibus.
Well, fine. I'll go get gas.
No, it's freaking and geeking, Joe. What are you freaking on?
Absolutely nothing. Can you believe it? I'm actually having a really good week. Something just clicked when I went up north between going to the MCBF's show a couple weeks ago and seeing comics and fans and going out and going up north. I recharged my batteries, and believe me, I've had some really busy days. Have I talked about what I'm doing? What's been going on with me at work?
Yes.
I know I've talked with you about it offline, but
yeah, you've talked about it a little bit. How you are basically in limbo.
Yeah. I've been sidelined again. Yeah, if you remember back in 2019 when I was I got sidelined with the fitness for duty thing. Is what they do, and they find out you report yourself. It's weird. I got this thing that says integrity on my patch that I wear. So I said, hey, I'm having trouble with my hands. You cannot screen. Busiest time of the year. Sit. Now, they don't fire you. What you got to do is send doctor notes up to some doctor in Washington, and somebody on high will deem if you are worthy after 18 years to remain a screener of people, touch people's junk, rifle through their stuff. Oh, by the way, if you've ever wondered why we do that, go Google administrative search. Don't Google Fourth Amendment, administrative search. Anyways, the problem is when you're on this, it's either you're fired or you may go back. And how they get away with it is because they allow you to, you're still going to work and getting paid. So for 90% of the day, I just sit around and I do nothing. I could go home if I want and do leave without pay or burn vacation, but whatever. So I'm on it. What did happen was weird because my doctor wrote, hey, my maximum medical recovery, MMR, should be in 4 to 6 months. So they came back and said, okay, 4 to 6 months, we'll revisit it. That was about a month ago. So I'm kind of like, I'm actually get to see the doctor sometime in July. So maybe I might get this lifted. But like I said, just recharging on the North Shore, realizing I'm not going to get fired. Not that I care if I would. I mean, I'm only like 3 years, 8 months till I can retire. Things are actually going pretty good. So other than, like I said, what I was freaking on and occasionally gets me down because you watch everybody work and I know all I can do is just sit there and go, how's it going, troops? I'm not really freaking out much. How about you, Cory? Well, I will be freaking probably next week because I'll be out of those sweet Martha cookies. Oh. Anyways, what you freaking on, Cory?
I watched the movie Army of the Dead.
And?
On Netflix. It was written and directed by Zack Snyder, who I actually really liked Dawn of the Dead, although I have found out that Dawn of the Dead remake he did was written by James Gunn. Joe, you know who James Gunn is, right?
Yeah.
Director and writer of the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Yeah. Army of the Dead is probably the best example of what I call just throw it in because it's coolism. I talk constantly on the PW Insider Elite site when I talk about storytelling, or here when I talk about storytelling, the concept of Chekhov's gun, which is if you show a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the third act. This movie, it's almost like that they decided Chekhov's gun means you set something up in the first act and then just ignore it for the rest of the movie, such as the characters when they come into the premises. Vegas had a zombie outbreak. The government has walled it off. They are going to blow it up in 3 days. A casino owner has $200 million in cash in the basement of one of his buildings, and he hires a crack team to go get it as if it's a heist movie. So it's a heist movie crossed with a zombie movie. So as they go into Las Vegas, there are piles and piles and piles of zombies that are in torpor. They're sleeping. And it is explained that these zombies are dried out in the hot desert sun, and if it rains, they come back to life. Now, if they take time to show that, you think that, oh, well, later on in the movie, it's going to rain, right? No, not at all. There is a character who has this big kind of buzz saw, and he talks about how much he loves using it and how much how cool it is. And they spend a good 2 minutes of him talking about this saw. So you think later in the movie, he's going to be using this saw on zombies, right, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Saw that sucker. What?
No,
what?
Not at all.
Not even one.
Nope, not used on one zombie. We have a guy who the casino owner put with them who seems very, very sneaky and very, very, he's got a secret. He's not to be trusted. One of the characters in the group finds out that he's not to be trusted, and he locks her in a room full of zombies. She's able to escape and get out the window, break through a window real near our people. Do you think that she tells the other people that he did that, or they try to help her? No. She just. No. They get into this. They get into the safe. There's $200 million in $100 bills, which weighs tons. How are they going to get out? Well, they have an old helicopter on the top of the building that will just barely hold all of the people in this group. So how are they going to get the $200 million out? I don't know. The Dave Bautista's daughter forces her way in because one of her friends has gone into Vegas and needs to be rescued. So they risk all their lives rescuing her. And then when the helicopter crashes, do we find out what happens to Dave Bautista's daughter's friend?
No.
No, she's
Just
not even
judging by what you've been telling me.
No. There are robot zombies. Robot zombies, Joe. Are they explained? No. Yeah. I was so frustrated and angry by the end of this movie that I wanted to throw stuff at the screen. And it's a problem that people have once they get to a point where editors have no say in what they do. It happened to Stephen King back in the 80s when he got this huge contract. And part of the contract was he could overrule his editors. And at that point, the endings of his books became terrible. Anne Rice, same thing. After Vampire Lestat and all of that, she got a contract where the editors couldn't make her change anything. And the last third of her books became convoluted and weird and stupid. And then she wrote Jesus fan fiction. And I'm not joking about that. Editors are needed. Because when you're a writer, you think, oh, this is cool, I'll throw this in. And if you don't have the discipline to either, okay, where does this go? You need an editor to tell you, wrap this up or edit it out. Kill your darlings. That is a real, the whole zombies dry out in the sun. Cool idea. But if you're not going to do anything with it, get rid of it, because the audience, if you spend time setting something up, the audience expects a payoff. That's storytelling 101. The other thing I am freaking on, I've been at the group home a while. We still, at one of the houses, have to wear full PPE because one of the staff felt that getting a vaccination was, that Bill Gates is going to be putting microchips in your DNA or some stupid crap. And she brought COVID into the house. Now, the good thing is no one in the house got it, but we all have to wear full PPE for 2 weeks because that's what the CDC says you have to do when there's been an exposure. And while it hasn't been super hot, let me tell you something. Wearing a mask, a face shield, gloves, and a full gown while helping people and cooking and doing all this stuff when it's in the 80s is a new level of uncomfortable. I smell so bad when I get home from all the sweating I have to do in that I feel like I'm a walking comic convention. Ugh. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Geeking on. Did I geek about the Yo Books barf bag I got from him before he moved to Germany?
No, you got a barf bag?
Yeah. He had a bunch of stuff up that he I guess he had his wife selling off because, as we know, Craig Yo was moving to Germany, and this one it's for the worst of eerie publications by Mike Howlett. And it says, warning, because the intense nature of these comics, stomach distress may occur. It's for use when reading the worst of eerie publications and other disgusting books. Chilling archives of horror comics. Yeah, it's a barf bag promo thing. It's from ID Comics. IDW published it. We dare you to watch the worst eerie publications on YouTube. Vomit bag. Do not reuse. So my wife's like, what in living hell did you buy that for? Why not?
Did you read that book, by the way?
I never knew it existed. It's just one of those that I
talked about it. Eerie Publications. That's the one by Myron Fass, where he took old 50s horror comics and had artists draw extra gore in them.
Oh,
they're awful. They're just awful. And the funny thing is, they sold, and they sold well enough that they lasted for 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I try to read them, they've they've added more gore and they've added more of this, and the underlying stories themselves just don't make any sense at all. It's very much in the 50s, it was kids who, oh, look at that. Look, the vampire's ripping her neck open. And then in the 70s, it had to be the same thing where the kid is like, he's ripping her neck open and her shirt off. They're just awful. Unreadable garbage. But in that worst of Eerie publications, there's a lot of historical stuff about what was going on behind the scenes, why they came into existence, who Myron Fass was. Craig Yo is one of the best historians in comics right now, and I pester him constantly for new books.
Yeah, he needs it. Yo. Let's see. Hey, happy birthday to Issues Needed Comics. Last week they celebrated their 5th year in business.
We were there their first month.
Yeah. They
and
left
boy,
a note on the
grown.
YouTubes. My family and I are so grateful for all your support. I'm living my dream thanks to you. And I understand that because I got to live my dream for a while. So maybe that might be a stop we'll have to check out.
I love his packs.
Yeah.
He does what I did for you, where, okay, I've got 8 issues in a row. I'm going to make it a pack. I've got, an entire story.
It's a great way to blow out inventory. Issuesneededcomics.com. You can check their Facebook page. 15465 Cedar Avenue, Suite 160, Apple Valley, Minnesota.
They do mail order, so go to their website and ask about the packs.
And tell them this weird podcast, Crazy Comics, sent you. Not that it's going to give us anything, just because we, I don't know.
We're showing the love.
We need the love. Speaking of love, Cory, you let's see if Cory remembers. What is my highest praise I can give to a writer?
I would read it if he wrote the phone book.
Yep. And I put that up on Peter David's page, and he appreciated it because I said I'm reading his autobiography, Mr. Sulu Grabbed My Ass, and other highlights from a life in comics, novels, television, films, and video game. This book works on so many levels. First of all, Peter David is a fantastic writer. He also gives his, what I would call his secret origin, because he started out in the sales department of Marvel Comics. I mean, that wasn't the first thing he ever did, but that's where he ended up. And that's where he ended up going into writing comics. And his first comics he wrote were...
let's see, that was a Spectacular Spider-Man story, The Death of Jean DeWolf, and the Hulk, because nobody wanted to write the Hulk.
Yep. He actually wrote Spectacular Spider-Man before that, because I remember reading it and I was like, oh, this is fun, because it was lighthearted, it was humorous. I know people were like, oh my God, this is terrible. And then he killed off Jean DeWolf, which he writes in his book. He's like, nobody had used the character in a year. I had no idea people were so beloved with it. And it was just kind of because her and Spider-Man had kind of a cheeky relationship going, where you could see they probably would have gotten involved had they written it that way. And the other thing that was interesting was that was really the first time David wrote a serious story, because everybody was like, oh, Peter David, yeah, he writes those lighthearted stories. And all of a sudden, oh my God, did you see what he just wrote? And I was like, I just remember, and again, this is just comic fans, zero behind the scenes knowledge. I had no idea where he came from. Didn't matter. I enjoyed the hell out of his stories. Started a love affair. Anytime I see him write something, I try to pick it up. I've got runs of stuff I didn't pick up, which I'm looking forward to because now I can pick up. I loved his column But I Digress in the back of Comic Buyer's Guide, the weekly newspaper that ran forever in the 80s, 90s. And that was always, he was the back pages. So it was like I had to read everything, and then he was always the last page, and it was a lot of fun. Met him a few times here and there at comic shows, and I picked up the book. I recommend it because, again, he's done stuff with novels. He's done stuff in television, films, video games. If you like me and love a good behind the scenes story, this is the book you want to pick up. You could probably get it direct. Well, if you want it autographed, you might be able to contact him. I got mine off the Amazons. McFarlane publishes it. Just a great book to read. A lot of fun stories. A lot of times I find myself grinning like an idiot because the stories were just so entertaining, especially when he's talking about astonishing his daughters. Because, I mean, there's one thing a dad really wants to do. It's impress his kids. And when he can have, like, Will Smith call his daughter, and all his daughter does is yell her name back at him. Ariel, hi, how are you doing? Ariel. Fun stories. So check it out. Highly recommended. That's pretty much it for me, other than I think I'll do like Cory. We got a glorious Memorial Day. It's beautiful outside, beautiful sun. Cory, I don't know if you saw by the end of the week, we're going to have summertime, hot and muggy.
Yeah.
So we got that looking forward to us, which is nice. How about you? What you geeking on?
TV-wise, I watched the Friends reunion. And I know that there are a lot of people who, oh, Friends is stupid. I hated Friends, blah, blah, blah. Well, somebody liked it because it's one of the most popular sitcoms in history.
And I will tell you, I didn't watch Friends nonstop. I'm actually looking forward to this. Matter of fact, I may watch that because I asked Chris. She's not really a Friends friend, but I really want to see this reunion show. It's on HBO Max, I believe, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I
I want to see it.
when it was on, it was one of the funniest sitcoms on TV. They had great writers. The writers involved came from other really good shows. And again, they created these characters that people got into, but they had jokes. And in this special, they talk about one of the most known things about Friends, where if you went in to watch a taping, you could be there for a long time because they would do a run through, and if a joke didn't get a laugh, the writers would huddle and write a new joke and film it because they wanted so much funny. And that's a lot different from a lot of sitcoms now, other than the Chuck Lorre sitcoms, which are not my cup of tea. But Joe likes them, and other people like them, and cool for them.
I like.
But most of the sitcoms that are on TV now aren't, okay, we're going to have jokes. It's we're going to have situations, and there'll be funny situations rather than having jokes, like Cheers, like Wings, like Frasier, like all these MASH. They had jokes, and the Friends reunion was really touching. They talked about how the actors had not been in the same room for 17 years. Joe, you know what else comes back every 17 years and just came back?
I can't. How do you call them?
The cicadas.
Cicadas? Yeah.
I wonder if that's connected.
But
it was one of those things where if you were a fan of the show, just seeing the actors getting together and talking about the show and talking about their time on the show and how their lives changed. And, they had some backstage footage and stuff. And one of the criticisms I heard was, well, a few years ago, this would have just been a cheap DVD extra. No, it wouldn't, because this is 17 years. It's kind of a celebration. They did all sorts of celebrations like this when they would get the casts of shows together over Zoom to either reminisce or do a table read or something like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having a nostalgia special. Not at all. Especially when, I've been at the group home a lot. They're on MeTV. It's they're doing a special Mayberry month. And they ended it with the Return to Mayberry TV movie, which was, we got the actors back together. We had a 2-hour movie showing where everybody went after, here's what did Opie do when he grew up? Andy and Barney both married their sweethearts they had during the show, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I know the kid moved to Milwaukee, didn't he? He had a bunch of Happy Days.
No,
they're all the same character.
No, they're not.
That's my Alan Mooreism.
That's your who was the Cameron from from Ferris
Oh,
Bueller's Day Off.
oh yeah.
You always told me he's playing the same character no matter where he is, whether it's Star Trek
Yep,
or
yep.
whatever. But I don't find anything wrong with nostalgia, and I think as comic book fans especially, nostalgia is a huge part of our entertainment because, we're reading Spider-Man that's been going for 60 years, Fantastic Four has been going for 60 years, et cetera, et cetera. And the cynicism about basically, I just want to see where the actors are and kind of, wallow in those good feelings again. I don't find anything wrong with that. And I really enjoyed it. It was one of those where when it was done, it's like, I wish it would have been more. Comic wise, again, I am reading this Kirby Romance and War, and while the romance stories are pretty, one dimensional, the war stories, one of the things that people who knew Kirby would tell you is if you got him talking about his World War II stories, there you go. That's all you're going to hear for the next 6-7 hours. The war stories are really well done. The inking by Christopher Rule on these ones from the early 50s, or who else inked this one? Christopher Rule inked some of them. There are some where Kirby inked himself. Minefield, Kirby inked himself, and it's just beautiful. And the Sergeant Fury stories are fun. They're very much Kirby kind of telling war stories and Stan Lee filling them with jokes because they wanted to apply that Fantastic Four Spider-Man formula to a war comic and see if it would work, and it did okay. It didn't, they stuck with superheroes, which is why Kirby was pulled off pretty quickly to go back to superhero stuff. Box Day came, and a whole bunch of really cool stuff. Let's see. I've got the all new Wolverine, which is the X-23 omnibus, the Annihilation Conquest omnibus. Now, I thought this would be bigger, but it is about the same size as Annihilation. So now with this book, I do have the entire Abnett and Lanning cosmic saga, which was Annihilation Conquest, Guardians of the Galaxy, Nova, and then War of Kings, which ended with the I can't remember the name of the story, but it's where they all went into the Cancerverse, which was this universe where death had been destroyed, so nothing died. And they showed what a horror that is. So I have that entire run now in omnibuses. And I remember when it came out, it sold okay. But it was eclipsed by the sales of Civil War. And they just, because Nova kind of limped along. Guardians of the Galaxy got canceled. Nova kind of limped along. They brought in the X-Men for War of the Kings because it's okay. We want to wrap this story up, but nobody's buying it. So, hey, let's put the X-Men in it. And then the other omnibus I have, and this is the one I'll be reading today, is Kull and the Barbarians, which is all of the King Kull stories. Kull was another character created by Robert E. Howard. Conan was in the Hyborian Age. Kull was before Atlantis sank, and he was the king of Atlantis. And this is all the black and white stuff. You've got artists like John Bolton, Val Zemeckis, E.R. Cruz, Marie Severin, let's see, John Severin, Barry Windsor Smith, Neil Adams, Sonny Trinidad. I always love that name. I've talked to the past when I was a kid. I thought it was a fake name because welcome to Sonny Trinidad. Nope, it's a real person. Don Perlin. Okay, they're not all great. Alfredo Alcala, Jaw Fisherwood, Mike Plug, Dave Winslow, Walt Simonson. So good. This is all the black and white Kull stories that Marvel published in both Kull Zone magazine and in Savage Sword of Conan, Bizarre Adventures. This is one that I've been looking forward to because while the Conan stuff, I I bought the Conan comic. Cull was in the black and white magazines when I was a kid. And $1.50 for a comic? No, you could have the 30-cent comic. Okay, I'll buy the
I don't want no $1.50.
Well, my parents wouldn't pay $1.50 for
What? $1.50? You nuts.
So I'm geeking on that. I have this week off. And other than getting new glasses on Tuesday and getting my car looked at on Friday, I have no plans at all other than the DVR is now at 75% full. I'm going to be watching movies off that. I actually started watching yesterday before the wrestling pay-per-view the show that Fox had called Next, which was about a artificial intelligence that had escaped and was rewriting its own program and getting smarter and smarter and smarter and trying to take over the world. Lasted 10 episodes, didn't do well, but I had the whole thing. Oh, it's really good. So if you see it out on Hulu, yeah, it's a fun show to binge.
You know, that's funny because last night I actually got a couple hours of my library that's on my DVR, and I watched two shows. One of them was about Skid Row in Minneapolis, which was an area which we call the Gateway District that was just as bad as you thought Skid Row could be. But it was filmed by a guy who actually was one of the guys who owned the bar and flop houses above it. And you kind of watched this as it was filmed in the 50s and 60s, because these were guys who would come to town, work the railroads, and then drink. Get up the next morning, have a drink, go work the railroads, and come back. Just a fascinating look at an area of town and history that, you think Skid Row, oh, we got to get rid of it. We got to move this. But these were the laborers that kind of built the infrastructure that people are living on today. And the fact that this guy filmed it and then they got him together and they narrated it. And then there was other historians saying, well, you also got to remember we have to filter this, because he was also an enabler for these guys, as well as, trying to make himself the hero of the story. It's kind of like when we go back to try to redo Native American history. Well, most of it we know of is from the missionaries and the religious people and the people who came in trying to tame these savages. Well, they weren't savages, but you got to kind of get their filter out of it to try to get to the truth. So it was just an hour, a fascinating look at town that right now it's all government buildings, but if you want a glimpse of what it could have been like, just look at the North Minneapolis, where it's above Hennepin. I'm talking downtown, not North Minneapolis neighborhood, where you got it's now the warehouse district is being turned into clubs. And that's probably what happened to the Skid Row. It just people would have been priced out. The other one I watched was just a history of the transformation of Minnesota from prairie land, woodland to what it is today. And most of it was just as the white man moved in, they looked at it. They were attracted by how beautiful it was, but they viewed things in terms of how can we exploit it and make money off it. Timber, farmland, changing things. Good or bad? Well, it's what built the state. So, and that was only two. I too have a 75 to 80% fill rate on my DVR, full of local documentaries as well as novas and other things. So, but what am I going to do? I'm going to go watch that Friends reunion Cory was talking about.
Now, wait, you watched a documentary on Skid Row?
Yeah.
Did they talk about what happened to them after Nirvana became big and their tour went from arenas to bars?
Well, they did talk about the bars, because basically here's how a block on Skid Row would be: bar, cafe, liquor store, bar, maybe like a sundry place, drugstore, bar, and of course above it were all the flop houses. So you're talking in these small square block, you had about 400 bars. So yeah, it was covered.
Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about Joe's Vacation and comic books for an hour and a half.
Well, to be fair, you went off on one of your historical rants, which is
Comic book.
fascinating. Yeah, I know. And you know, I just sat back and I just, well, I'll tell you what I did. Cory, let's ruin a superhero by changing one letter. Brother Doo-Doo, Sperm Man, Bottom, Superman, The Incredible Bulk, Wonder Woman, The Flush, Barman, Buttman, Fat Man. Well, that was actually the human flying saucer. Car Woman, Pant Man, Bellboy, Puke Cage. If you add an apostrophe, Ma'am Thing. Should I keep going?
No.
Oh, I was just getting to fuck Rogers. Okay.
Well, as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe, haven't you already done your dad joke?
Grown Lantern, Cylons, Bitman, Dead Shop, Death Smoke, Death Pool, The Incredible Hull. All right, hit my music.